Hi, I'm Sam here at Rick Jones Pianos with probably the smallest piano I've ever worked on. This is a Samick model S-108 console, Continental console, built in Korea in 1988. Most notably, this piano has a shorter keyboard. It's only 85 notes rather than the full 88 notes, and the highest note on the piano is A. So it goes from A to A. As I said, it's a really small piano, very slim case. I had the Continental style is in itself designed to be as compact of a cabinet around any given design of piano as possible. And we often see the Continental design on larger pianos like a Yamaha P2 Studio. This one is for when space in wherever you live, if you're buying it for your home, if space is really at a premium and you just don't have much room for a piano, but you have to have a piano of some sort. If that's your situation, I strongly encourage you to come out and take a look at this quickly. We don't get them all too often. And I've noticed in the past when we do get them, they tend to go relatively quickly because there are people who have to have a piano but just don't have much space to work with, especially in an apartment. So that's what this piano is designed for. You might call it an apartment-sized piano because of its especially compact case. And then, unfortunately, I forgot to measure the dimensions of it, but it is noticeably narrower. It's slimmer. And those 3 fewer keys will easily knock off a few inches of width from the piano. So perfect for tight spaces. Curiously, the piano has only 2 pedals, but it still has a practice mute. The practice mute is not operated by a pedal. Rather, it's operated on the inside by a little metal lever. Actually, it's accessible without even having to open the front panel or even cock the lid any more open than the little lid prop is already open to that. It has a genuine practice mute, which goes in between the hammers and the strings, so that if you need to play very quietly without disturbing neighbors in another apartment, you can do so. Just note, it's not operated by a pedal, it's operated by a little hand lever on the inside of the piano, which you can easily reach from just over here. So, a nice ingenious little design that I can't say for sure, but my speculation was that it might have helped Samick really optimize as much as possible the space inside of the piano, because a conventional middle pedal practice mute, that mechanism does take up some space, whereas here, making it as compact as possible, they can make the case even smaller. So I think, in my opinion, very thoughtfully designed for the particular situation that this piano is intended for. I'm quite happy to have worked on it and to have made it into a really beautiful piece of contemporary furniture. It has this polished ebony finish, which I've been able to buff and polish to be nearly like new. If you look hard enough, you'll find the remnants of some scratches that we had to buff, but you'll be hard-pressed to find them. The piano has had a relatively easy life, and I could tell by looking at the wear on the hammers too. It was not played very much by its previous owner. It was clean on the inside. Whoever had it previously evidently didn't play it very much, and so that is why we are confident in putting a 10-year warranty on this piano, all parts and labor, and a 100% lifetime trade-up guarantee. We do ask that you please make sure to have it tuned twice a year by a professional technician, and that you regulate the environment of humidity around the piano. Pianos are happiest between 40 and 60% humidity, and that's especially crucial for the soundboard of the piano. You don't want that gaining or losing too much moisture content, because that will throw it more out of tune, and eventually opened up a crack in the board. So, and we would ask that for any brand of piano, no matter the size, where it was made. Every piano needs to have that. And if you do that, not only can you enjoy the piano that stays in tune better, but you can also return to us at any point in the future, if you wish, and trade this piano in for precisely the instrument sales price. That applies to anything else we sell also. That's what we mean by 100% lifetime trade-up guarantee. And sometimes teachers will recommend their students start on a regulated, but a well-regulated and modest, but well-made little piano like this. And then as the student gets better and improves over time, it may be up to the teacher to recommend upgrading to a nicer piano one day that's larger and more capable. But that may not necessarily be your situation if you're in a tight living space and you simply need any sort of piano that can fit there. When I worked on this, I really tried to make it play as well as it could, and I'm quite pleased with the results. It's a very smooth feel for the keys, and remarkably responsive for as small as it is. The keys on the inside are really short. They really tried to optimize everything to be as compact as possible when they were designing this piano, and yet they still got in my opinion, a really substantial tone. It's I'm really pleased with how it turned out. So for the tone itself, the rating, if you play it softly, you get a very gentle, warm sound. If you play it more loudly, the boldness and the brilliance comes out. Just depending on how you play it, it could be either bright or mellow, and that sort of works itself out to be a 5 on a scale from 1 to 10, from mellow to bright. A nice neutral sound. The touch, likewise, it's a smidgen firm, and in my opinion, Samick's tend more often than not to have a bit more resistance than average in the keys. I'll rate it a 6 on a scale from 1 to 10. I'm thinking more like 5.5, but we round it up. Good for a relatively young student who's just starting out, who also expects to have to play on a grand piano at a teacher's teaching studio or in the school, wherever. Grand pianos have a more substantial feel, and one of the most horrifying things any student can experience is to be practicing on a piano at home that has too easy of a touch, and then to be unprepared when it's time to play in front of the piano teacher. Because the teacher's piano is firmer, that won't be the case here. This will prepare you sufficiently for the more massive feel of a grand piano at a lesson without being too firm. It won't overwhelm. I thought it was just slightly firm, pleasantly firm, we'll say. Oh, and it does have its original matching bench. It's not a duet bench, it's again, a really small little bench. It is original, it opens up to stored music, and in largely good condition. There's one dent on it somewhere here that I'll touch up. Again, evidence that the piano had an easy life in its previous lifetime. Usually benches get destroyed if the piano's really worn out too, but not here. So a really nice little piano, and I encourage you to come out and see it for yourself. If you can't make it, you can always give us a phone call or send us an email with any questions, but we do hope to see you here. Thanks.